that's our cutting edge, good as it gets racing DIY quad or drone. Let's look now at what researchers are doing. So this is the Active Research Centre here at QUT, ARCA, and Duncan Campbell. Tell us a bit about what you guys, first of all, have you got anything that funky at work?
Probably not as much fun, I don't think.
What's the aim of ARCA? What do you work on?
So we're looking at the big picture of what we can use UAVs. Before you ask that question, we love UAVs. Much the same comment there. The media has beat up the word drone a little bit, and that does detract from a lot of the good things we see that they can do. Yeah. So one of the things that motivates us is a term called dirty, dull, and dangerous. And if it's
dirty, dull, and dangerous.
Dirty, dull, and dangerous.
All right.
So if it's too dirty, dull, or dangerous for a human pilot, that's a good thing that a UAV might be able to do.
So what sorts of things?
Well, it could be agriculture in terms of large farms.
It's like crop dusting or something? Or?
Not quite. Looking at crops, looking at mines, things that you might have to fly for hours and hours and hours and hours and get some really smart data and try and work out what's going on. We're really motivated by public safety and disaster response. So you imagine with floods and cyclones and bushfire, there are a lot of situations there where you can't get manned helicopters in there. That's the ABC. I heard that.
Well done. So, can you give us an example?
Yeah, so if let's take Cyclone Yasi for instance. There was a cyclone in northern Queensland a couple of years ago, and there's a period when the cyclone comes thing and everything's in turmoil for a long while. He's listening to the radio again.
He is trouble. I knew I shouldn't have got him.
Yeah.
Well, champions. They're just, Okay, sorry, Duncan.
No, that's right. So, the cyclone comes through, it's all a bit of a mess, people are in a bit of trouble, and it takes a while before communications are established, before manned crews can come in and have a good look at what's going on. So the opportunity we see there is, well, let's fly in UAVs, and if we can put in a number of UAVs before the manned crews can come in, and the UAVs can say, there's someone on the roof of that house, we need to go and rescue that person. That person's got beer, he'll be right for a few hours. So we'll go and rescue this person first.
The North Queensland UAVs.
That's right. So what we're on about is how we can do those big ticket type missions.
So with your research, is it more taking existing technology and working out systems for it to be deployed in that way, or are you advancing the technology as well?
A little bit of both. I think systems is a good word there.
Yeah.
So how we can use multiple machines working together. The other thing, which is a little bit elephant in the room, is the fact that we're flying in manned airspace. So if we're up there doing things like agriculture, and you mentioned crop dusting before, so what happens if Farmer A is flying their little UAV around and next door's crop dusting? And there've already been some incidents where they've got a little bit too close.
Right.
So part of what we do is, well, how can we insert these things into airspace just like an ordinary aeroplane?
And what have you come up with?
Well, our research centre, anyone got a private pilot's licence in the room? Jean? Not me.
One at the back,
one or two hands. So, if you're a general aviation pilot, then one of your key responsibilities is not hit another aircraft. That's always a good thing. And it's basically down to the human eyes for detect and avoid. And that's actually a very hard thing, but that's the last bastion to not have a collision. So the question for UAVs is just like human pilots, how can we see other aircraft and how can we have other aircraft see me and we stay away from each other? So with UAVs, having UAVs being able to see, literally see with a camera, other aircraft and then making sure they don't run into them. So we've got that sort of technology. The other one is, again, with human pilots, if the engine fails, what do you do? And you want to come down nice and safely. And same thing with the UAV. We want to come down and not hurt anyone on the way down. So they're two safety technologies that we've developed. And then we talk about all sorts of other things, those in the know, ADS-B. When you look at Flight Radar 24, for those of you who do that, the little blips of planes you see on the screen there, that comes from a data stream called ADS-B. And the aeroplanes grab their GPS signal, they tell the world about their GPS. So part of it is how do we get the UAVs to do that in tiny little things like that.
But do they have GPS in them now?
Nope, not well. I don't know if you've got GPS in those, but they can.
Is it a weight issue or...?
Yes.
The racing drones don't generally have GPS because we don't need them, but we can put GPS on there if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So, yes.
And, okay, so maybe I'll come back in a minute, Geoff, to getting you to really blue sky for us what you can see drones being able to do. But let's get to the... Oh, yeah? Sorry, Duncan. Yeah, sorry. That's the thing when you've got 4 men on a panel, there's just no basic way of distinguishing between them.
They all look pretty much the same, let's
You all
face
look
it.
the same to me.
Yeah. I'll let my hair out. Will that help?
Thank you. Thank you, Markia. Yeah. He's right, he is a chick magnet. It's like Fabio. Okay, so we've had
Leave
a bit
him
of
alone, he's mine.
We've had a bit of
my
a
hair
look
today.
again at where we're at now with the research and some of the other more professional capabilities, I guess, of the UAVs. Let's hear now someone who's actually in business with UAVs or drones or quads. So, Jeff, your company, UAS Pacific, so Jeff Barker, you're the CEO?
I am, yes.
The CEO. So tell us a bit about your company and what you do.
Well, basically, we've been involved in aviation, mainly in the airline side of things for the last 30 years. And back in 2003, we did some UAV work for the Port of Brisbane Authority when we were monitoring some mangroves. And
Monitoring mangroves.
Monitoring the mangroves
Yeah.
when they were expanding the
They
port
don't
there.
do much, though.
And no, well,
Just sit there.
the mangroves
Tide
weren't
comes
doing
in,
a lot.
tide goes out. Crabs
Sorry.
come up, crabs go
But
down.
the port was expanding and the mangroves were
An
shrinking.
important habitat for,
Yeah,
for birds.
exactly. And Mark's job, no. Anyway, so the industry from there, so there started to become opportunity there for this new technology, which we now mainly call drones. And this technology allows us to then do things in the dirty, dumb and dangerous, I've probably got one of those Ds wrong, a lot cheaper and safer. And we do a lot of things around high tension power lines. We, for example, fly over the top of Queensland Rail's infrastructure, and we'll often be within 10 metres of their 25 kV lines, where we do the same thing for the high tension power lines. And with the energy providers, they were having a lot of problems with people getting hurt and even dying doing those types of services. We can do those services
What service were you
safely.
providing? I mean, were you just checking things?
We provide basic asset management, so we can look at the actual infrastructure and see if it's been damaged. We can look for hotspots. And also we do a vegetation management where the Victorian fire was caused by a tree or something had got too close to the power lines. And
When you say the Victorian
the
fire...
Victorian fire that caused Black Saturday was caused.
You're kidding.
Yep, it was caused because the tree, they believe.
That was just one front though, surely.
Well, they believe that was the main problem, was the actual power line infrastructure. The trees were too close to the lines and it caused the fire.
And so a quad could have been monitoring that and...
Well, aviation is now used to monitor these corridors and make sure that there is sufficient distance between the power lines and anything that can catch fire.
Yeah.
So obviously that's one of the areas which is quite dangerous.
Can I just ask, dirty, dull and dangerous, so you've got them flying along the dirty, possibly dangerous, certainly dull corridor looking for things. Isn't there some poor sucker at the other end with the goggles on, living the dull in real time as they try and work out, or is it all done by computer, the analysis?
It's done by both. Generally, the actual flight would be programmed on a computer, and there will also be someone looking through and viewing it. And it's probably, we work in teams, and we follow a similar methodology that flight crews follow in the airlines. So we will generally have a pilot flying and a pilot not flying. So they have different roles, and observation and maintaining safety and awareness is one of those key aspects
And
of it.
something else that you do, and I know this because, so I work at the ABC in the science unit, and we recently shot a story for Catalyst in the high country in Tasmania, and whereas we used to have to hire a helicopter to do our shoots, and that would be anywhere up around $100,000 for half a day to get those aerial shots. And they used a couple of guys with drones down in southern Tasmania to shoot the footage, and it's like cheap as chips. Unfortunately, they lost the really good shot.
Well,
certainly not your guys, I'm
you
sure,
get what you pay for, I suppose. And well, the industry itself, there's so many new ways, and Duncan's very true about they're looking at new ways of implementing the technology. And it is very, very exciting. We were talking earlier, I think there's a lot of young people in this room who, when they get to our age, a lot of the careers that you'll go out and do will involve drones in some way. So this technology is going to be here to stay. And where it is very exciting, and I think a lot of people here, you wouldn't be here if you weren't interested in some way in that technology.
I did want to ask, so we're looking now at the things, so I want to talk to Duncan about some of the things that are helping us push forward, because you've already explained, Geoff, some of the new ventures that we're getting into, and you mentioned earlier that you flew some, or shot some stuff for Pirates of the Caribbean down on the Gold Coast recently. Yeah, so I mean, that's just the entertainment sector is just another area.
Well, film and television obviously is pretty exciting, and the fact that you can get different types of production shots with the drones. I hate using that word because people, I guess, the military connotation.
Yeah.
But so it does provide the cinematographer a new way to capture.
I hate that word, cinematographer.
I do.
Can you say cameraman?
Cameraman. And so that's another area we haven't done anything for ABC actually. We did some work for SBS about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, so you do the low budget stuff?
We do. Yeah, we've done some work for SBS Channel 9, 60 Minutes.
Beautiful. All right, that's enough name dropping.
I could go on.
I'm sure you could. You're the CEO. That's your job. Now, Duncan, one thing that's helped push researchers into exploring new territory is kinds of competitions, like the competitions that help the hobbyists push their technology further and further. Tell us a bit about the competition that you guys were involved in recently, the challenge.
Sure. So when we say just involved, 8 years this has taken, this challenge. So those of you looking up web pages, uavchallenge.org. This is a competition that we've run for a number of years and primarily coordinated between QUT and CSIRO, but many companies help out, including UAS Pacific. And it's all about saving this guy called Outback Joe. Excuse me. And about 8 years ago, we set a challenge, and I'll back up a tiny bit. The reason that we issue these challenges is we're trying to push the boundary the whole time. So it might be a technology boundary, it might be a regulatory boundary. So one of the reasons we don't see UAVs being used more so is that the regulations are pretty tight right now. So the regulator is fairly conservative, and just inch by inch as we prove that we can demonstrate safety in certain areas, they're starting to relax the boundaries in certain areas. So one of the purposes of the challenge is, A, develop the technologies that we need to further this whole industry. The other is around the regulations, as I said. So Outback Joe, he was lost in a paddock for 8 years.
Is Outback Joe what, a sack of weed or?
Excuse me, he's a real live living dummy.
A living dummy, good, thanks.
He lies around
so Outback Joe's got a seat at our table down at Arca. He makes the best decisions in the place.
Oh, really?
And once a year he gets taken out into the paddock, he gets lost. And we have teams from all over the world and come and find and rescue Outback Joe. We thought this would take 2 or 3 years. It took 8.
Wow.
8 years to find and to rescue Joe.
Well, how do you find him?
So what teams would do is there'd be a base station, actually looks a bit like this, with tables with technology all over them, and the aircraft would then fly afield, and it'd be a field a number of kilometres by a number of kilometres. The teams don't know where Joe is. They're relying on onboard sensing for the aircraft to find what might be Joe, and then get confirmation, yes, it is Joe or not Joe.
And what kind of sensory data are they picking up, like infrared, warmth, as though he's alive, or?
They could use that, but generally they use vision cameras.
So they're just scanning.
Same sort of cameras that are on here, same sort of thing, yeah.
Joe didn't have a pulse, apparently.
No.
I don't think there was much warmth there.
Do you warm him up?
No.
You should warm him up.
No, he was warm though, he was heated.
Solar.
That's interesting.
He was a heated Joe.
If I was lost for 8 years.
It is Kingaroy in September. It gets chilly out there.
You just gave it away.
Kingaroy?
Yeah.
Oh, no. That's public, that bit.
All right, okay.
Yeah, it's where in the paddock. Anyway, so Joe's been saved anyway. So 4 teams last year found and saved Joe, and the saving bit was dropping a bottle of water like this within 100 metres of Joe.
Oh, wow.
So it turned out to be more of a challenge than we thought. The regulatory part of it is we're flying out of an airport. So this competition was based at Kingaroy Airport. We had the regulator with us there the whole time, actually mucking in and helping us out. That was great. And so we're demonstrating to the regulator how we can operate all together with manned aircraft and the local gliding school in a safe way. So that's all done. And I should point out there's another part to the challenge. It's the Airborne Delivery Challenge, where high schools can put in teams. They know where Joe is. Up until recently, the competition was to fly over Joe. There'd be a pilot and then what we'd call a bombardier. The bombardier was in a tent, so the bombardier couldn't see directly where Joe was. It was up to the pilot to fly over Joe, and then the bombardier looking at the sensor, trying to work out how to pitch what was then the Mars bar to Joe. It was good to be a judge in that part of the competition because you can't reuse Mars bars, so I was there to help out. We are moving on from Mars bars now. So having, and that competition, by the way, the next high school challenge with airborne delivery is up at Calvert Park at Ipswich. So we alternate year by year as to where we hold these things. So second week of the school holidays this year up at Calvert Park is the next competition.
September school holidays.
September school holidays, yes. So by all means, come on up. I'm trying to remember which days they were.
That's right,
Tuesday,
it'll be
Wednesday.
on the website.
Yeah, it's on the website, yeah.
So has anyone taken part in that kind of a competition or challenge? Well, I think it'd be a great thing to get involved
Well,
in.
I guess now's a good time to mention that the 4 people who did find out back Joe shared in a prize pool of $50,000. So maybe that gets some people
Who now
interested.
wants to get involved in one of these challenges?
Yes, $50,000
Yeah.
and buy a heck of a lot of good stuff, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, so you mentioned there about regulations being... So obviously in this new industry, that is a major challenge. I want to hear from each of you about regulations because I know the hobbyists also have feelings about this. Duncan, you've spoken a bit about how you're working with the regulator to show what can be done and hopefully push a little bit further and further. Geoff, is the regulatory environment, is that something that's holding back much, or is it not a really big problem for the industry taking off in Brisbane?
In some ways, the regulation can be difficult to get around, and that's probably the case with anything that's new. Any new technology, there is a learning curve where even the regulator themselves are learning. And our company has been assisting the regulator with understanding the capabilities and the types of delivery options that drones can do, and even the types of things that customers are going to want to try and use this new technology to achieve. The regulator has, since 1988, had CASA 101. Duncan, is that correct? 2002.
1988, 2002, whatever.
Well, I believe the regulation came out in 2002. It was drafted in 1988. And Australia was one of the first countries in the world to have regulation for drone use. So in some ways, we are leading the world in as far as allowing the use of drones. The US and many other countries are far behind us. And for a business, this is actually very helpful to have some regulation to allow us to work within.
So that's fantastic news because we've seen, for example, the renewable energy sector has just crashed and burned in Australia, even though for so long our research was leading because of
crashing
regulation.
and burning are types of words that when you're talking to CASA,
Okay.
they're things that you shouldn't put in your risk
yeah.
assessment.
Okay, my bad, wrong choice of words there.
Don't shout them in airports.
Yeah.
So it's great that we've got this advantage here that our regulations are actually not holding back Australian technology development for business, given that as a nation we don't have a great reputation for taking these opportunities and really pushing them forward.
Yeah.
What advice, what's that?
No. We'll say a few things in a minute.
Okay, all right. What advice or what do we need to really go ahead with this and make this a new industry?
Well, the
Or a strong
industry itself
industry?
is moving forward. The regulation and the regulators, as such, are always very conservative. So that's one thing that you have to understand. It's also very costly to move forward. The regulator, as any type of government department, will charge and charge very well for the use of their services. So to get the approvals needed to do the work in this new industry can be very expensive, especially the more complicated you want to make it. For example, high tension power lines are one thing. Anything that involves risk or people are going to be very expensive to get the regulation approvals for.
So it's in your interest then, it's great, because for the QADs, UAVs, whatever.
Drones.
No, don't say that.
I'm going to get in trouble now.
For UADs, it's better for you because you're avoiding that problem by not having a manned craft
UAS.
up there. UAS? Oh,
Yeah,
that's your business.
unmanned aerial systems.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to your questions in just a moment, but I just wanted to get the hobbyists' response to this whole question of, as hobbyists, what are the barriers? What's the regulations? How do you feel about the regulatory bodies, without implicating yourself in any way that could see you in jail?
I won't give the mic to Chad because he'll never give it back.
Right. Thanks, Mark.
He has lots to say. In summary, how do we summarise our position? The legislation is quite old now, and it's lagging behind what
is it
these
national
things are doing.
legislation or state?
Yes, no, it's national. So it's all Civil Aviation Authority, CASA,
Okay.
and they do anything to do with aviation, and they're very conservative, out of need.
Understandably.
Yeah. So they've been drafting some new regs to handle the smaller, lighter UAVs.
Do these classify as smaller and lighter?
For commercial use, yeah. So I guess the other thing is the distinction between commercial and non-commercial use. For anyone out there who wants to think, oh, I'll grab a DJI Phantom and I'll get into the real estate business and I'll just start filming people's houses for them, things. You can fly in the park as a hobby and you can make pretty videos, but once you start doing commercial work, then everything changes. And they're reviewing that at the moment to have a number of subclasses.
If I can help with one of those, CASA views unmanned aircraft as the same as as conventional aircraft. So when a business wants to operate commercially, you get an operator certificate, which is exactly the same as Qantas and Virgin has. And people may think that the smaller UAVs are very safe, and they certainly are. The risks, though, are real, and they are there. And
Someone could lose an eye.
Well, yeah, exactly, and it's never you; it's always someone else. But in going forward, it does. You do have to look at it, and the insurance companies themselves have done a lot of research, and they've worked out that there are risks involved.
How
with
many of their
using the small
insurance
one.
companies actually fly these things?
Well, I'm not going to speak for the insurance companies. I pay them a lot of money. Aside from, I'm certainly not pro the insurance companies, but the insurance companies do research into their products, and they have found that it can be risky, obviously, with any type of these things.
All right.